Can you talk about the graduation process for a nurse practitioner? Dude, this is a great question. It's a great question because most nurse practitioner students and most nurse practitioners who are on the cusp of graduation, they usually end up messing things up. They usually end up having to wait and or delay processes that are already painfully long. We're going to break it down into the steps that I took, and the steps I took were partly planned and partly by complete accident, and I got lucky. So you first need to understand that graduation and taking boards, that's like the last things you do. Everybody thinks that they can just wait until they graduate or they're close to graduation, and then they panic and what are they going to do about boards and when do they take them and where do you go. And you need to start planning your graduation almost 6 months from the date you're graduating. Yes, I said 6 months. 6 months. It's going to take you that long to get all your ducks in a row. And I don't know about you, but maybe you haven't spoken to other NPs. There is a virtual vortex that you're going to be stuck in. There's going to be a 3-month period, a 3 to 4 month period where you're stuck in limbo. You go from being the student and you're taking your clinicals and it's the last semester. Now I graduated in the spring, so I'm going to use the spring semester as an example. You start your spring semester in January and you graduate in May, you take your boards, and then waiting. Lots of waiting. I'm here to tell you that from the time you graduate to the time that you actually start patient care in the inpatient world, now I can't give you any reference for outpatient processes, but to care for patients in the inpatient setting in a hospital, it takes an average of 3 to 4 months. And for reference, I graduated in May. I didn't actually start treating a patient until August. Yes, almost 4 months. That's how long it takes. And I was actually ahead of the schedule. I was on time with everything and all the paperwork you have to do. So I'm telling you right now, start planning for your graduation 6 months before you walk across the stage. I'm going to break it down for you. Here's how you should do it. Number 1, find a job. Freaking find a job 6 months before you graduate. I don't care if you are still willy-nillying about, I don't really know what I want to do when I grow up. If you don't know by now, you better figure it out sooner than later. You need to be applying for jobs way before you graduate. Hopefully, you have the wherewithal and the forward thinking to start planning for that during that last year of clinicals. Because most people who do clinicals, they use it as a tryout. You try to do clinicals where you think you might want to work. And if that's not the case, if you're in an online program and you're just doing clinicals where you can, then you need to start applying for jobs 6 months before you graduate. You should be interviewing and have put a job in place months before you graduate. Because if you don't, it's going to take even longer for you to actually start working. I had a job secured in December of the year before that I graduated. I graduated in May. I had a job in December, 6 months prior to graduating. You need to get on it and start now. Number 2, you need to decide where you're going to go take your boards. Who are you taking your boards with? There are several entities out there that offer the certification exam for the nurse practitioner. And this is not just for acute care, but this is also for FNPs and for neonatal, pediatric. Fairly certain that in every nurse practitioner specialty, you have at least 2 options, if not more. So you need to decide which one you want to do. I'll try and link in the description of the video how you can decide that. I talked about it a long time ago, so bear with me on that. Number 3, register for the exam months before you graduate. Register. You're able to register for the exam almost, I think, I don't remember the cutoff is. Maybe it's 3 months. I don't know. You have to look into whatever entity you're certifying with. I took my exam with the ANCC, the American Nursing Credentialing Center. I could totally be getting that wrong. And I was already applying for the test before I graduated, because there's steps you have to take in order to register for the exam. It's kind of like when you took your RN boards. You have to gain entrance so that you can actually pick a time and a date. So you have to fill out an application. You have to prove that you've done all the hours. I think you have to have a letter from the school. You got to have something from the director of your program. And you can actually submit a preliminary school transcript to get your application started. When you finally graduate and you get your official transcript, that's when you'll get the okay to test thing in the mail, or you'll get it by email, and they'll tell you, congratulations, you are now qualified and you're able to register for the exam, and you can go to this link and go ahead and pick wherever it is you're going to go and take your exam. You don't get that far until you have provided every other piece of information up to and including your official school transcripts. And those are the ones with the official seal that has to be sent by the university to whomever. So that doesn't happen until weeks after you graduate. Once again, long period of time for processing. Did I mention that? Number 4, go ahead and graduate. Congratulations. Woohoo! Years of hard work and no sleep have finally paid off. Congratulations, you've now graduated. Number 5, study. Study, study, and study. I probably should have put this way back on, like number 1. You should have been studying for the past 6 months. I'm hoping, good grief, I'm hoping that you've been studying for more than the time after you graduated. You should have been studying for boards for the past 6 months. Maybe I should rephrase that. Study for boards when you start looking for a job, which is 6 months before you graduate. Done, period, end of discussion. And if I were you, I'd be spending the money for a review course. I don't care how broke you are. I was just as broke, and I spent the money on a review course that offered the DVDs, the booklet, and then it was a live 2-day course. And it was worth every penny. Number 5, you're going to go ahead and take that exam, and you're going to pass. Yes, you will pass. First time. Got it? I totally don't know what number I'm on. I'm fairly certain I've said 5 twice. I don't know. Sorry. Number 6, you need to apply for your license. You've now graduated. You've passed your boards. Now you need to apply to the state you live in, or the state you're going to be working in. You need to apply for licensure. And that's a whole nother packet of information. It's just as painful as it was when you were a nurse, when you were an RN. It's not any easier. And I'm here to tell you that even after you apply, you are at the mercy of the government and the state. It could take weeks. It could take a month. I knew that it was going to be that painful. So I called the Department of the State every single day for almost 3 weeks straight. I am not making that up. I called every day to see if somebody got my application, where it was, whose desk it was on, and who was up next. Yes, timing is everything. Because if you don't call, I guarantee you it will take up to a month. And I'm fairly certain where I live, I'm not the only place that happens. It's painful. Number 7, you're going to go ahead and apply for your DEA license. That is, if you have taken all the appropriate classes in order to have prescriptive authority. Once you get your NP license, you can, it depends on the state you're in, you will also apply for prescriptive authority, and then you'll take all that information and you'll go to the DEA website, the Drug Enforcement Agency, and then you're going to fill out a whole nother packet, which is just as painful and as just mind-numbingly detailed. You're going to go ahead and fill that one out too. Have I mentioned how much paperwork and how much time this takes? Number 8, last but not least, hopefully you've gotten a job by now, because if you didn't get a job yet, time to go do that. Remember, I said start that 6 months ago. You now have a job. You now have studied and taken your boards. You have hopefully gotten your license and license number from the state. You have applied and are working on getting your DEA license. Now, whatever hospital system you're going to be working in, you're going to start the process of credentialing. Here's the thing, is that the minute that you get hired as a nurse practitioner, hopefully the people who have hired you already started the credentialing process. That process is painful as everything else I've mentioned. It will take just as long. The credentialing process for an inpatient acute care nurse practitioner for myself, or for most acute care NPs, is an average of 3 months. Yes, 3 months. So the minute that you start filling out the paperwork, it will be a multi-stepped, multi-phased process. You have to fill out A before you can fill out B, before you can fill out C, before you can fill out D, before you can fill out all the way to Z. And you can't skip steps. And this step won't allow you to move on to the next step until you have certain credentials, or until you have certain pieces of information and paperwork. Some of those things that I've talked about. Doesn't matter how on top of things you are and how forward thinking you are, you could start the application process 6 months prior to graduation. You're only going to be able to fill out, a quarter of that packet, because the other parts of the packet require your NP license, require your DEA license, require your National Provider Index number, which is your NPI number, and you can't get your NPI number until you have the other two things. And then your NPI number is important for billing purposes. Then you get your NPI number. And they're going to take all of that stack of papers that is, 10 inches thick, and they're going to take that to multiple boards for review. The least of which is your medical staff board and whomever else. Because you have what are called credentials, and then you have what are called privileges. Two separate things that require two different committees to approve. This is the process for every NP, every advanced practice provider that works in a hospital system. It is also the same process that doctors have to go through. And it is arduous, detailed, and long. Have I hammered the point that just because you are on the cusp of graduation doesn't actually mean you're going to start working and taking care of patients? There is a 3 to 6 month lag time between graduation taking care of that first patient, be able to actually perform a physical exam. 3 to 6 months. It's that vortex and that limbo that I was warning you about. You're going to be sitting in limbo for months. And there's absolutely no way to expedite the process. Because if someone has some information on how to expedite that process, y'all need to be sharing that in the comment section. Okay? There are pieces that you might be able to, the length you might be able to shorten and expedite. But as a whole, there is absolutely nothing you can do because you have to do step A before you can get all the way to Z. And there's no way of skipping ahead in any way, shape, or form. Sorry to break the news to you. I should share that I think all NP programs should actually lay this out in a timeline for you. And come to think of it, maybe I should do that. Daily Sean, I'm out.